Minister survived his no-confidence vote, but suffered a big rebellion.
Labour's Keir Starmer, of course, has accused Conservative MPs of putting party interests over honesty as they chose to support Boris Johnson. Well, joining us now is Labour's Deputy Leader, Angela Rayner. And, of course, you've got your own problems with the so-called Beergate, Angela Rayner. Let's just get straight to that and deal with that first off. I mean, a lot of people wonder why, when the Labour Party was repeatedly denying that you were at that particular gathering, now labelled Beergate, you didn't actually just put your hand up and say, no, you got it wrong, guys. Don't you remember? I was there. Why didn't you correct the record?
Well, we did. There was one person, one staffer that had said that I wasn't there, which clearly I was there. I put on social media that I was there at the time, and I've never said that I wasn't there. And we've been very clear, and I think this is the dividing line, is that standards in public life really do matter. And we've said that one investigation that's happening into a work event that we had, that we're very confident was work, that if we were delivered a fixed penalty notice, we would resign. The Prime Minister, however, has seen 120-odd fixed penalty notices delivered, one to himself, vomit on the floor, wine up the walls, serial partying going on in number 10, and he thinks he can just carry on, and he's taking the public for fools. Standards do matter, and that's the dividing line between ourselves in Labour and the Conservatives. We're very confident we've not broken any rules.
Well,
Boris Johnson clearly has, and he's continuing to take the public for fools and think he can carry on.
Well, he's certainly clinging on, but they all do, don't they? Your own leader has said that he'll resign if he gets a fine, and we just simply don't know what's going to happen. We hear that Durham Police are being quite punctilious in their interpretation of the rules. If he is fined, do you think he'll stand by that pledge? Do you think he will stand down? And will you, if you're fined?
Yeah, and we've been clear, and you said that, that everyone does hang on. Well, we don't. Myself and Keir Starmer have been very clear that if we broke the rules, we'd resign. The Prime Minister broke the rules. Like I say, number 10 had more fixed penalty notices than any other address in the UK on the laws that they implemented, telling us that we had to stick by the rules. We're clear we have. We've said that if we were found by the police to have not followed the rules, then we would resign. The Prime Minister still hasn't resigned, and he's taking the public for fools. So there is a clear dividing line. We've got a motion today in the House around standards in public life that we think should be implemented. That was an independent body that said these are the recommendations, and Boris Johnson is refusing to do that. We're giving Parliament the opportunity to uphold those standards today and to set that tone, because it matters. It matters to the British public, and they're not going to move on while Boris Johnson is Prime Minister.
Well, the thing is that it's down to a vote of the backbench MPs and the Conservative Party members in the House of Commons, isn't it? And they have voted to save Boris Johnson. I mean, whatever you might think about the result, 211 said they have full confidence in the Prime Minister, and therefore he stays. So there is a legitimate argument that the matter has been settled and we should all move on.
Well, over 40% of his MPs voted to, get rid of Boris Johnson. Over 70% of his backbenchers did. He is mortally wounded. You see, the problem with Boris Johnson is he thinks the rules don't apply to him. He thinks he can ignore that. He's tried to change the standards in public life, to water them down so that he can say, I don't have to resign now, because he thinks he didn't lie to the public. It's pretty clear he did, and he's trying to cling on to power. And I think it's just going to keep damaging the Conservatives, and I think many Conservative MPs know that.
Yeah, well, I mean, and obviously 148 do, but 211 don't. I mean, they think that he is the right man for the job, that this is a distraction. There are huge issues that need to be tackled, particularly the cost of living crisis, inflation, the rise in energy prices, the rise in petrol prices. They need everybody to move on so that the government can do its job properly for the good of everybody.
Sure, and the Prime Minister months ago knew he lied to the public. He knows that they were partying numerous times in number 10, and he could have done the right thing and moved on. We've had months of him just looking after himself and not dealing with the cost of living crisis, not dealing with the issues that matter to the public. He said back in October that inflation wasn't an issue. It's pretty clear that inflation is an issue in the country, and he's just completely distracted. And this is not going to go away. He still has the Standards Committee that he has to go up against. The ABBA party wasn't investigated fully. That's pretty clear now. And the British public have said that they're not happy with what Boris Johnson has done. And I think that's something about our psyche in Britain, is that actually, if we make the laws, we should apply them to everybody, irrespective of what their position. And the Prime Minister, at the very least, should uphold his own laws. And if he's found that he hasn't, he should resign.
But being absolutely honest, wouldn't you rather he stayed? I mean, if you've got damaged goods on the other side of the benches, it does you nothing but good, does it, in a coming election, if he stays on? If he goes and he's replaced by somebody who's not tainted by Partygate, that actually gives you a bit more of a problem, doesn't it?
No, Richard, because the problem is that standards in public life matter, and when you've got a Prime Minister who thinks that he can lie to the British public and break the law and carry on, it drags everyone down. How many times do we hear all politicians are all the same? That's why myself and Keir have been very clear that if we got a fixed penalty notice, we would resign, because standards matter, and if the Prime Minister thinks it doesn't, then it brings a plague on all our houses, and it's not good for our country.
Okay.
You've got a Prime Minister that lies, then what else can he lie about?
Just before we let you go, Angela Rayner, I just wonder, there are 148 Conservative MPs who are dissatisfied with their Prime Minister. I just wonder whether you expect any of them to cross the floor.
Well, like I say, we have got the motion today on standards in public life, which I hope that many of those MPs will support that, because it is about a cross-party consensus on an independent standards committee that says these standards are important. I think we should all vote for that today, and we should continue making sure we hold Boris Johnson's feet to the fire, because this is not a party political issue. This is about the integrity of our Parliament and what parliamentarians are expected, and lying is something that cannot be acceptable, and breaking your own laws cannot be acceptable, and we've got to set that pretty clear, because otherwise I think it damages our politics and our democracy for decades to come.
Well, listen, briefly and finally, you've doubled down very clearly here on your pledge to resign if you do get fined, and that is a possibility. Most people think it's unlikely, but it might happen. You might both be fined and then you're gone. Very briefly, who would take over the Labour Party?
Well, we would have a process like that we have in our party, but there's many talent on the Labour benches. We've been putting forward a programme, not being distracted around how we deal with the cost of living crisis. I've been putting forward the plan for the future of work, which would enable people to get better wages, more flexible working, so that they can, carry on and have work-life balance. We've got a programme for change, which is beyond myself and Keir, but me and Keir have been very clear that if you break the law, you cannot continue in your role. And Boris Johnson should take heed of that and stop dragging standards down and do the right thing.
Thank you for joining us, Angela Rayner.
Thank you.